It's spooky season. That means it's time to make Halloween decorations. This is a technique I figured out while I was at textiles camp. These pieces use a strand of copper wire knit with a strand of acrylic and then are melted. This is an easy beginner project because we're just going to knit rectangles. So for this project, you're going to need 32 gauge wire, acrylic yarn. You want acrylic and no natural fiber blends because you want it to melt. And I found that thinner yarns work better than thicker yarns because they melt more quickly. LED tea lights. Do not use real candles for this. And a heat gun. This looks like a hairdryer, but it gets a lot hotter. I tried to figure out how to do this in my oven, but it filled my house with the smell of burning plastic and didn't work very well, so I cannot recommend it. And there are links to where to buy all of this in the description and in the YouTube shopping tool. So first, let's talk about the selection of yarn. You want to use 100% acrylic because you want this to melt and not burn like natural fibers do, but keep in mind that melting the acrylic gives it kind of an orange color, which is fine for Halloween decorations. Like this started out white and it became this color. It's fine for Halloween decorations because it gives it like that aged, weathered look. But keep that in mind when you're choosing colors. Like this is how this piece turned out and it was made with this yarn. And these can always be painted later, but I like the way that they look kind of in their natural form. All right, let's get started with the easy one first, which is going to be the ghost. We're just going to knit a rectangular swatch. That's it. And I'm setting my tension mask back up. I have this cream fingering weight tam yarn that I'm going to feed into the first feeder. And let's get camera 2 recording while we're at it. There we go, camera 2. And then the magnet wire. So this is the 1 pound skein of magnet wire. It feeds nicely when it's upright in this position, but as you use it up, it doesn't feed quite as well, so just be cognizant of that. And I don't know if you can even see this on camera because it is so very thin. But I'm feeding this into the other, the other yarn feeder. And then these just get parked in the thingy for now. And then we're doing my standard every other needle cast on. Right around 0, pull out every other needle. And then I'm gonna run the carriage over it just to get all the needles in the right place. And then I'm only going to cast on with the yarn, and I'll put that into feeder 2. So if you look at your carriage on your LK150, there's a 1 here and a 2 here, and they are 2 different channels that the yarn fits into. That's the built-in plating feeder for this particular knitting machine. And I should mention, you can do this on any knitting machine. I'm just doing it on my LK150 because it is a little more accessible. So I'm going to put this into feeder 2 because we're going to put the wire into feeder 1 later. And that just keeps the wire on one side of the fabric. I highly encourage you to swatch and figure out what you like best. When you melt the piece, the wire shows through a lot more, so take a look at what you like in the melted piece. All right, and then it's trying to do too many things at once. All right. And then hang some weight. Thingy in the thingy, and then bring all the rest of the needles forward. And knit 1 more row. Again, you should swatch and figure out what makes the most sense for you, but the tension that you choose is going to be dependent on what like final outcome you want. If you want a lot of light to come through your ghost, then pick a looser tension. If you want it to be pretty dense, pick a tighter tension. So I'm gonna go with 5, and then I'm going to take my wire, which I don't know if you can even see, and feed it into feeder 1. All right, we're in, and then we just keep knitting. I want a piece that's almost square, and because this has wire in it, it doesn't quite behave the same way that a normal like yarn swatch would behave, so it's not quite as stretched out, so I need to knit a few more rows. All right, I'm gonna call that good. So then I'm gonna knit, put the carriage on the left side, cut the wire, because it's easier to cast on with just the yarn. And pull that out of the carriage, and then I'm going to turn the tension to the highest setting and knit a row. This creates a row of long loops that are easy to cast off. So bring all the needles forward and then bring my piece forward, and this is similar to the cast off that I used in the Your First Sweater video, so if you need a refresher, go check that out. And then I'm going to pull my yarn out of the carriage. Come on, it's stuck on the brushes. There we go. And then just through the loops. This is the latch hook tool bind off, if you're curious. And this doesn't have to be all that pretty because it's gonna get melted. And once it's melted, it's really easy to cut into the fabric because it's not gonna unravel the same way that a normal knitted piece would. So if you're unhappy with this, after you've melted the piece, you can just cut it off. And then I can cut my yarn, park it here, and pull through. And then we just pull this off. Needles. Okay, cast on comb comes off. And then we are left with this piece. I'm gonna cut the tails a little shorter so that they don't get in the way for the next step. You go away. And then we have these long loops on the bottom left over from the cast on. I'm just gonna pull on the tail, and those are little pull loops through. Okay, there we go. And I need one more camera because I always need one more camera. Having a YouTube channel is just an excuse for me to buy more cameras. Don't tell my parents. So here is our swatch that we just knit, and you'll notice it behaves a little oddly. So it still wants to curl up the way that stockinette does, but this is in the same form that it was when it was on the machine, which we don't normally get from swatches on the machine. So we can pull on this to set the stitches a little bit more, but it doesn't change the look or feel of it much. But what it will do is if we take, here we go, we got some cream of tartar. If we take the swatch and we mold it, we can stretch it out over kind of any object and it will keep that shape. This is just temporary at this point. Like I could stretch this back out and it would go back to being a normal old swatch. And I also believe that if you let it sit for long enough, it's gonna go back to a normal old swatch because the acrylic yarn is a little bit springy, so it's like putting tension on where we stretched it out and it will eventually go back. But if we melt it, it's gonna stay in that shape. So let me actually find a different spice container. Hold on. Here we go. And let's do this out here. So we have our container, and if we just form the piece over it and pull down, this deforms the stitches, but because there's a wire in there, it's gonna stay. So this doesn't look like much now, but we can shape it more. And I want mine to be like kind of ghost shaped, like traditional Charlie Brown cartoon ghost. And then I want it to have like a decent base to sit on. So I'm just gonna crinkle up the rest of it. And I might trim some of this off later, but for now I just want to crinkle it and give it some texture. And you could form this over like anything that's heat proof. I have a bug pan. This I know can stand up to some significant heat. Ho, look at that. Okay, that's like ghost shaped, right? I encourage you to really play with this and make a bunch of swatches and see what makes sense for what you're trying to get. But I'm gonna call that done enough. Get my blunt pan out of the way. Look at that, it's a little ghost. Okay, and I wanna make one more. Let me do that off camera. I have finished my second swatch. It looks very similar to the first one, but I switched feeder 1 and feeder 2. So the yarn is on the outside and then the wire is mostly hidden on the inside, but once I melt it, it's gonna show through a lot more. So I'm gonna do something a little bit different for this swatch, but I'm still gonna use my bunt pan, and let me turn on camera 3. So I'm still gonna take this about the center of it and stretch it over the center of the bunt pan and then stretch it out. So we want to deform the stitches so that we get the like sticky uppy part that we want. And I still want it to be like ghosty shaped. Right now it's finger shaped. And then I want scrinkly parts here. But all that I want is like, so it's a ghost coming out of the fabric, but like it's reaching at you. So I think I can do that by like putting a pen through it and making holes. Like then it's like ghosty, but it's got hands. Does that make sense? So we got the arms and then there, that looks kind of like it's reaching towards you. We're gonna see. We're gonna see how this turns out, because once it is melted, the acrylic yarn will contract a little bit and it'll look a little bit different. But let me scrunch it up so it's got a decent base. This helps, gives it some stability. And also it looks a bit like, I don't know, like fog? I imagine this technique would be interesting to use for like miniatures, for your Dungeons and Dragons, and for your Warhammer stuff. But, okay, I think that's as good as it's gonna get. We have a little ghost that's like reaching towards you. All right, let me put that over with the other one, and then I have a surprise third swatch. Oh boy, come here. I made this with the orange yarn and just cast on across the full bed and then let it go until it hit the floor. And I have plans for this one, but I'm going to shape it where I have more space outside. So it is time to melt things. Come join me outside. And you should do this next part outside because it involves melting plastic and you want like all the ventilation you can get. Because it's melting plastic. It can't be good for you. It's October, but it's like we're in the middle of a heat wave because the world is melting down and it's ending. But I have my heat gun plugged in to an outdoor outlet. Can you even see it? I have it on its highest setting. And then I'm going to turn it all the way on. And then we're going to take our first piece and put it entirely in the sun. Why not? And then just point the heat gun at it. You periodically want to turn the heat gun off and then let it cool for a couple seconds and find the areas that are still flexible and then melt those. Melted this section a little too much. Oh no. Gotta be careful. And that is starting to stiffen up. Alright, and then I'm just gonna, oh, it's a little too hot. Flip it and do the inside so that it'll stay put. So it's still going to be a little flexible, but like this part right here is too flexible. All right, I'm gonna call that one done. And yes, it looks a little oranged and burnt and it's not completely even, but I think that like adds to the aged, weathered look. And in the dark with a candle, this is gonna look amazing. So let's do the other one. I'm gonna see, look at the base first. I'm gonna call that done. Okay, so I've got my two ghosts done, and it's time to look at the giant piece. This I would like to be a pumpkin, but we need to shape it. I brought my bundt pan and my seasoning out here, and I want this to be like a ghost pumpkin thingy. So we're gonna shape, so let's get this about in the center. I'm gonna shape like the stem of the pumpkin, and then like the rest of it will go in there, and then have it be scrunched around the bundt pan. So I want that to be like the top of the pumpkin. And then I'm just like scrungling this up to give it some more texture, to get it to stay better, because the wire is like really thin. So it doesn't give it all that much support. This to be a little further off the ground. Hold on, I gotta go get something to prop this up on. So, grab the ramekin. Gonna put the, there we go, that's more like it. So I want you down in there. And then like, pumpkin will have ribs in some form. And they'll get more pronounced as they go down. And we scrungle you, and we scrungle you. And scrungle you. So we like kind of, I want it to have a footer so it like can kind of stand up on its own. So we scrungle, we scrungle, we scrungle. And then I can just turn this. I think what I'm going to have to do is start melting it and then keep scrungling as I go. And the spice jar has a plastic lid, so I'm going to pull that out. And I'm going to start melting the top and then shape the bottom later. Alright, we got the top melted. We've like kind of have these ribs defined. Stretch out. And tuck it in. I don't like tuck it in a little bit. But I also don't want the edges of the bundt pan to be clear through the pumpkin. Make sure it gets tucked up in there. Hopefully this stands up on its own. It's still going to be a little flexible once it's melted. Flatten that out. All right, let's do this. Camera overheated and died, but we're back. Oh, it's scrumbledy. I think it's time to remove it from confinement. I'm gonna, oh, that's hot. That's really hot. Hey, but it's holding its shape. So let me... It stands up on its own. That's a good sign. It wouldn't have done that before. All right, let me hit it from the inside to get all the spots that I couldn't get from the outside. Got a little lopsided. Let's see if we can fix that. Oh my god, it's still so hot. Hot, 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 hot. Stretch this out a little more. Here we have a ghost pumpkin, and it stands up on its own. Oh, that's gonna look so cool in the dark with some candles in it. All right, I am back. I had to change my shirt because it got really hot and sweaty. The high today was almost 100 degrees, which should not be a thing in October, but my ghosts are done. They're cute. I found some googly eyes for this one. Like they're cute in this current form, but there's gonna be like a void when I put lights in them. So let me do that. I have these lovely LED tea lights, and it's not going to show much now, but as soon as the sun goes down, I'm going to set these up on my front porch and see what they look like. There we go. So these are my Halloween decorations. I hope you found this tutorial useful. Reminder that there are links to all the supplies in the description and in the YouTube shopping tool, except for this yarn. This is some mystery synthetic that I got as part of a bundle years ago. I think there's still a lot of possibilities for this technique. Like there's still things that we could do with it that I haven't considered yet, and I want to know what y'all think and what you would consider making with this technique, because I think it's really cool. Like look at the ghost pumpkin. There were questions on my last video about Electronic Textiles Camp about whether or not you could do this without the wire and just the acrylic yarn swatches, and like you could get something similar, but it wouldn't be like this. Like you wouldn't be able to shape it like this unless you like tied it all down with, I don't know, maybe kitchen twine and then melted it and then pulled it off, but you'd wind up with different textures and different structures because you wouldn't be able to stretch the piece out while it was in its unmelted form the way that you can with these. The pumpkin was interesting because this is the biggest piece I've ever made with this technique, and I had a little trouble towards the end making sure that it was going to stay up. I just had to very carefully make sure that all of the bottom section was melted so that it kept its structure. So that's about it. If you want to learn more about eTextiles Camp or I developed this method, there's a link in the description to their information and to a couple more videos that I made about my experience there. Thanks for watching. Happy knitting!